Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. It's unbelievable that we're already, well, almost at spring. I was looking around, and this morning was super rainy and gray and pretty awful. And as I look out, the sky is starting to turn blue. You're starting to see a little bit of the clouds fading away. So it's a fantastic day. I hope the week is going fantastic for you. It's going great. And I'm excited about today. There's some pretty good questions. And before I dive into that, I just wanted to reflect with you very quickly upon the very fact that I just mentioned. We're about to close the first quarter. So I hope that you did set out your objectives in a very clear way when the year's beginning. And I hope that you are continuing to track how you're making progress against them. Or even if you're not making progress against them, the important thing is that you have awareness of where you are, if there are any adjustments that you need to make, if there's any tweaks. It's not late. You can still go back, reassess your priorities. This is the time when you would do that. There's a question about the first quarter in our stack for today. So I'm going to dive straight into the questions. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Eduardo. Ambitious finance professionals hire me to help them grow because they feel frustrated. They're not making the kind of money that they want to make. And I help them get earmarked for faster growth, for more promotions, and to make the kind of money that they want. If that sounds like you, leave me a message, send me a comment, let's connect, and I'm pretty sure that we can work on getting your career accelerated. So let's go to the first question. And I think it's an important one. We were talking about Q1 right now. What role do previous year's performance metrics play in adjustment budgets and initiatives during Q1? Well, think about it. Typically, when you define your budget at the beginning of any year, what happens is that you normally do this around Q3, maybe early Q4 for some companies, depending on your own company's cadences. You assume that that last quarter is going to behave in a certain way. What happens in Q1 is you have closed that year, the previous year. Now you know what Q4 looks like, and now you know what reality was for the whole year that just closed. In this case, 2023. And so now instead of having an estimated year, you have an actual year. And with that, you now know if you need to tweak a little further or how to tweak a little further. You will always need to do that. And if you finished stronger than you thought, you might want to reassess your investment priorities. So you might want to accelerate your spending on strategic areas that will drive growth for your company. On the other hand, if you find that you didn't do as well as you had expected, or that you did kind of how you expected, but this quarter was extremely challenging, then you might want to do the opposite, is reassess what your priorities are, what are the key things that you want to spend on, and what are the things that you want to stop. So does that make sense? Q1 is important that you turn around and look at your actual performance for the preceding quarter so that you can then inform your decision making as to how you want to continue to manage not only this quarter, but the rest of the year. Typically, this is when we, in all the companies that I worked for when I was CFO, this is where we went back and rejiggered our priorities and reordered some of the things that we wanted to do. It's an important quarter. People tend to think that Q1 is just the start of the year. It's kind of momentum. You're just starting. Why is that? What's the big deal? It is a big deal. How did you think you were going to close the first quarter based on how you assumed fourth quarter was going to be? And how are you communicating to others your actual expected performance based on what you saw your actual performance to be in the preceding quarter? Does that make sense? I hope that's helpful. All right. Next question. Very simple question. There's a lot to unpack here. So I will try to give you a very succinct answer to the question, how do I build trust in my team? Let me start by telling you what you should not be expecting. Trust in your team is not a magical pill, a pill that you just take and just magically your team starts to trust you. Trust from your team is something that you earn day in and day out with a lot of effort, with a lot of conscious work. Let me explain. You cannot just command your team to trust you. You need to show that you are trustworthy. As an example, if you are, and I hope you are, a person who goes to your team and says, tell me how I'm doing. Am I doing well? Am I doing badly? Where do I need to improve? What should I start to do? You're asking these questions, then great, that's a good step forward. But in addition to asking the question, you should also act on the feedback that you get. Did you hear what I said? So reflect, repeat the question back to whoever is giving you the feedback, and then think on it deeply and act on it. That's probably the strongest trust developing action that you can take with your team. Is ask them for feedback, get that feedback, act upon it. Let them see that you took it in, that you're doing something with it. Represent your team, advocate for them. They should know. Take their interests at heart. Have communications with your team members. Understand what their interests are. Understand what their strengths are. Help them develop their strengths. Help them work on opportunity areas. Put them in places and in projects where they will be able to exert that ability, that skill that you want them to develop. That they know, that they feel that they're getting stronger. That's important. That'll let them know that you're not only listening, you're willing to help them, you're willing to go to bat for them. If there's discussions where you're advocating for them and others might be advocating for the teams at the same time, they need to know that you are out there for them. Tell them where they're doing well. Tell them where they're not doing well, that they need to do better. Trust is not built by promising people that you're going to promote them. Trust is built by your letting them know how you would be willing to promote them. Letting them know that when you promote them, you're putting your neck on the line too. And therefore, you're going to build them up so that when you recommend them for promotion, you're recommending yourself as a leader. When they see that your feedback, that your guidance is authentic, that it's genuine, that you're really trying to get them to grow as professionals, they will trust you more. And like I said, this is every day. Rinse, repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Trust is something that you earn. Be truthful. If you make a mistake, admit to it. Own up to it. Apologize if you need to. If you were too harsh on somebody with no reason, why not let them know? If somebody was right and you were incorrect in some assertion, let them know. Thank them for that feedback. Thank them for their input. If somebody tells you not to do something and gives you strong reasons why not to do it, then thank them for that guidance too. Their job is to help you get better, and you have people in your team because they know more than you in that specific area of the business that you gave them to handle. So show that to them, that you appreciate their input, that you appreciate their value. And finally, make sure that they know that you value, that you acknowledge, that you perceive, and that you value their hard work. It's a trust killer, and I've been the recipient of that when you're just asked to do things, to work, to leave your hide off, and nobody even bats an eyelash or looks around and says thank you. A small, short thank you goes a long way. So make sure that they see that you appreciate them, that they see that you're giving them things that will help them develop and grow and get those skills that they need. Does that make sense? Trust is a small word with a big meaning. So build trust every day with your actions. Acknowledge your mistakes, acknowledge people's achievements, and contributions and be thankful and transparent, good or bad or ugly. Truth is the best policy, and that's what's going to get you the trust. But it's a day in and day out thing. It's not a magic bullet. It's not a wand that you just wave and all of a sudden your team trusts you. Okay? I know you'll do it. Let's go to the next one. Okay, there's a lot of cost cutting going on in my company. And how do I stay ahead and do it to myself rather than be surprised? Well, great questions. Indeed, I've seen some clients that are being affected by cost-cutting measures in many different degrees. Some had important projects be canceled, put on ice. Some others had their positions be eliminated. And so all of a sudden, they're just looking for their new chapter. And this is not attributable to anybody. It's just the economic situation, market situation. Companies sometimes need to take these actions. When I was CFO, I had to do that myself too. So I understand that. The first thing that you need to do as a leader is is understand what's the context. Why is your company taking on these measures? Why are these cost-cutting initiatives being put in place? And start to think about your own operation. First of all, are you contributing with every dollar that you spend? Are you contributing to increasing the top line of your company or the bottom line of your company? You could be investing in something that will generate savings such that your company's profit margin will be better. If that's the case, then I would argue that that's a justifiable dollar that you want to defend, that you want to spend. Some dollars, and you need to be honest with yourself, are not as justifiable right now because there are some expenditures, even some investments, where spending a dollar now is not necessarily going to move the needle in the direction that the company needs you to move it. This is probably not the right time. There's probably no receptiveness right now in the market for whatever it is you're trying to do, or even in your company. So assess what it is you're trying to do, place it against the backdrop of the company's overall market and economic situation. Now, if you're in that situation, in that context, and you know that you need to cut your expenses, well, take a look at your fixed expenses. How have you been, let's say that you run a business. Has that business been growing because you have been increasing prices, but also increasing your fixed costs just at a lower, slower pace than you were increasing your price? Then that would appear in the past like your margin is improving and like you're doing fantastic. But guess what? Once the market stops receiving your price increases and it's harder for you to sell with higher prices and your volume stagnates, what's going to happen? Right? Your profit stops growing. It might even decrease if your sales decrease because of some recession, because of weak demand. And that's why you need to be very, very watchful of your fixed costs. Rent, utilities, payroll. These are insurance. So these are things that you need to do. You cannot help it. Some you can control. Are you adding people faster than you should in the face of volume, assuming you sell volume, right? That's not increasing. If you're not selling more in units, and those units could be boxes, or they could be policies, or they could be documents, or they could be contract for service. If you're not selling more units, why would you be adding more heads? Because if you do, you're eroding that margin, and that's something that you need to take a good look at. If that's your situation, then what are you going to do to control, curtail, or reduce your fixed expenses? Those are things that the company will I can tell you, your CFO and their team will look at where's the top line being generated, where's the expense being generated, are expenses growing faster than revenues? And if so, how are we going to reduce the speed of expenditure? So take a good, long, hard look at your fixed expenses, act on them, propose action on them before the company or your finance colleagues come knocking at your door and telling you you need to cut that. You need to stop that spending. You need to reduce your headcount. What are you going to do proactively? That'll give you the benefit of talking to whoever in your team needs to hear it. If somebody's running a project that you're going to curtail, then if you do it on your own rather than being told by the company, you're in a much better position to go and give that person advance notice. If you're going to let somebody go because you need to eliminate a position, same thing. It's not a surprise. Now you know. Be truthful. Remember the previous question. How do you generate trust? Well, be truthful. So you go to your team, you go to that person, and in a very respectful way, you tell them their position might or will be eliminated due to cost constraints, and you give them some perspective. So stay ahead by watching how you contribute to the top line and particularly to the bottom line. And are you growing, and your department and your expenses, are they growing faster than your revenue? First thing to look at, take action, be clear, be transparent, go to your finance colleagues and say, this is what I'm seeing, help me devise a plan to control that, bring that back into control. Not only will that allow you to do it to yourself, to use your words, it'll also be a strong signal for the company that you know how to run a business, that you're not just sitting around waiting for thunder to strike, but that you are proactively taking action that will result in benefit and that will result in the needle moving to where you need it to move. I hope that makes sense. This question brings with it sometimes thoughts that are not pleasant, actions that we would rather not do, like letting people go, for example, or stopping a baby project, a pet project that we might have. But this is where the rubber meets the road. This is when people will be able to tell if you are able to make those hard choices, to identify what needs to be done, to propose it before you're told. Make sense? Did you hear what I just said? Proactivity. Do it yourself. Run your business. Be responsible. Increase your segments of the business contribution towards the larger bottom line of the company, top and bottom line. That makes sense? Okay. Let's move to the next question. Okay, how should I prepare for high stakes meetings and presentations? So these are meetings where you have senior stakeholders that will come, will see you, will listen to whatever you need to say, to tell them, and they will process. And they will process several things. The merit of your arguments. How will you present them? Who are you as a leader? What's your potential? Do they trust you? Do they see you doing bigger things, broader things that are more far-reaching? These things happen in high-stakes meetings. Conversely, this is the meeting where you could be judged not to be ready, not to be good material for development, not to have a good command of your business. So very, very important situations. And obviously, when you are preparing for a high stakes meeting, the first thing that you need to start to think about is who's the audience? Who's going to be there? What are their roles? What typically crosses their mind? What are they most concerned about? How what you do and what your team does affect whatever it is they worry about? What could they be concerned about? So know your audience. Be aware of who you're going to be talking to. The other thing is, think about the context of your business, like we were saying before. What's the situation like? What does the situation like mean for your area, for yourself as an individual? So have information, be informed, know the context, have a frame of mind, have a framework for your opinions, your thoughts, your views, your proposals. How nervous are you? Be aware, be truthful to yourself. Are you nervous? Do you think that you could lose your train of thought if you're put in the spot? Be ready to handle that. How are you going to handle it if you get what kind of questions? So try to foresee those questions. Even if you're put on the spot, Even if you're not speaking, you're just sitting at the table, somebody else is speaking, and suddenly you're put in a spot with somebody who turns around and says, hey, Joe, Jane, Pete, whatever your name is, what do you think about the topic at hand, whatever it is we're discussing? Well, if you're on the spot and you don't have an answer ready to give, even if you do, I would advocate that you pause, you chew and process what you just heard as a question. And it's okay to even repeat the question back to the person. So if I understand you correctly, what you are asking me is, that'll not only buy you time, it'll allow them to see, your audience, that you are trying to understand what the question is and reflecting on it and giving them a thoughtful, considered response. So if you're put in a spot, that's a tactic. If you're nervous, it's normal. Everybody gets nervous. When I started my career, when I was CFO, in the middle, in between, I often was nervous in meetings. You need to know that. But because you're going to be nervous, you need to prepare. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Over-prepare. Rehearse. What are you going to use? Are you going to use visual aids? Are you going to bring slides to the presentation? And by the way, I would advise the least slides that you can bring, the better. Be ready with content. Be ready with your knowledge of the topic. Rather than relying on slides. What happens with slides is we tend to read them. And that's a bad signal about your command, about your executive presence. Try not to distract people with visual aids if you can help it. You're the center of attention. So prepare, get ready, decide where you do need the visual aids. What's the sequence? And rehearse. Have somebody, your mentor, your leader, your peer, see you rehearse. Do a dry run. Do 6 runs. Do 6 dry runs. Rehearse. Practice. Get comfortable with what you're going to say. You might still be nervous throughout the meeting, but this is what's going to change. You will have a lot more presence when you speak. You will have obvious command of your topic. You will be ready to hear, listen, process, and respond to questions. Even if you're nervous, you will be able to project authority, competence. You will be able to inspire people, and you will be able to let people know that you are the best choice for the next level up. That's what you want to convey, that you're ready, that you can, and that you are willing to take on broader responsibilities. And a high stakes meeting is the best possible spotlight and stage in which you can be to transmit your readiness. So be ready. This is a great opportunity. Don't dread it. Prepare. Use it to be stronger. Use it to prepare more. Okay? Do you hear me? It's not for you to be afraid. It's not for you to get frozen like a deer in headlights. It's an opportunity for you to bring your brightness, your greatness, to shine a light on your genius. My friend, good luck in your meeting, and let's talk some more. If you need some help, we can always be here every Tuesday, or just reach out and we can get into some conversation. Okay, let's go to the next one, and I think this is the last one. Yes, this is the last question. How can I convey and project my leadership brand in a mostly virtual environment? I appreciate the question. Well, after the pandemic, or let's say if you think about the pandemic in 2020, we all were remote. So there was nothing but remote. And ever since that moment, even if you see that companies are increasingly bringing people back to the physical office setting, I believe personally, I could be wrong, but I believe personally that hybrid work is here to stay. So many people will have different varying degrees of attendance to the office. Many days you or others might be working from home. So this is a very relevant question. How do you project your leadership brand? How do you continue to sell yourself? How do you continue to burnish your image even if you're remote? Well, think about some things, and there's many. I'll just touch on a few that really come to mind now. One is consistency. You want to be visible consistently. It's just like you're posting daily on some social media. It's not a social media, it's your company, but you're trying to be visible. You're trying to not only be visible, but visibly adding value. You're trying to be present. Be helpful for others who are not around you. Be knowledgeable about the channels, the venues that you can use and exploit to add value, to help others, and to move the needle forward for your company, your team. Use them. So you have to understand what your brand is too. So what is your brand? What are your strengths? What problems do you solve? How are you communicating that? Are you publishing that? Are you letting people know that this is the kind of problem that you solve? This is what you typically do. You're there. You understand. You're ready. So what's your brand? What problems do you solve? How do you contribute? How are you going to let people know that you're there? Be consistent, be truthful, add value, be helpful. If you're in a hybrid environment, it doesn't hurt for you to pop into the office every now and then. Show your face, show your actual physical self, your body, your embodiment is what I mean. And walk around, be physically present every now and then. But above all, know your brand, communicate consistently with it, add value with your communications, be present, and use the virtual space just like you would normal space. If when you're in the office, you're walking around and popping in somebody's office and asking questions, interacting, adding value, offering thoughts, why not do the same virtually? You can still communicate via mail. You can do Slack if your company does that. You can do a chat, Teams, Zoom, whatever. Don't let distance keep you apart. Don't let distance isolate you. Many people suffer, and the struggle comes from not knowing how to establish connections with others, when this is an actually good opportunity for you to develop those tendrils, strengthen your roots, and make sure that you build strong connections with others. So what's your brand? What do you stand for? Which problems do you solve? How do you solve them? How often are you communicating this? How helpful are you remotely? How accessible are you remotely? How much are you reaching out to others remotely? Does that make sense? I hope that captured the essence of your question. Your leadership brand is important. You need to know what it is. You need to show others your value, but you need to be active about it. You need to be proactive, you need to be helpful, and you need to be productive. Okay? Thank you. And that's all we had, my friends. So let me see, where are we here? Yep, that's all we had. So nothing left for me to say but a couple of things. Let me plug this here quickly. I'm working on creating an effective business writing course, and I want your input. Right now, I'm not selling anything. I'm not launching anything. All I'm trying to do is just understand what the need is so that I can create a course that will respond to that need. If you would be willing to get into a short conversation with me, just for me to pick your brain a little and see how an effective business writing course would be helpful for you, please let me know in the comments. Please DM me. Please get in touch with me, and I will send you a Zoom invite for a quick conversation, no more than 20 minutes. All I want to do is, if you are somebody who could benefit from a course and improving your skills in effective business writing, what are your pain points? What would be your priorities? What would you like to see in such a course? That's the kind of thing that I want to understand. So please let me know, and I would love to get in touch with you and get a conversation going and reflect your input. You would be able to influence and impact how this course is delivered, the content, and how it benefits others. So please do, if that's interesting to you, get in touch with me. Let's have a conversation. In exchange for that, I'll give you two great resources. One is an introduction to situational leadership, and the other is going to be a cheat sheet for determining the developmental level of members of your team so that you can better apply situational leadership to them too. So don't forget, go get your free course on executive presence. The link will be in the description. Have a fantastic week. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.